Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new, welcome to your first video. My name is Solomon Thomas. I'm a Marine Corps veteran and I'll soon have my master's in psychology, and my goal is just to make YouTube videos about ideas that I think are interesting or that I found useful in my life, with the hopes that other people will find them interesting and useful, and perhaps we can learn together about different aspects of psychology and philosophy. So in this video, I wanted to talk about attention. Attention, I've learned this from Ian McGilchrist. He's a psychiatrist, and he has a few books, and I think one of them is called The Nature of Attention. And he asserts that attention is not just another cognitive faculty like perception or memory or language, but it's the primary faculty that enables all of the others. Things like perception, memory, speech, they require the differentiation of information, and attention is the process of foregrounding salient information and then backgrounding irrelevant information. I want to relate attention to experience and suffering. One of the things that I learned recently, maybe in the past year, is that we as individuals, as living organisms, as cybernetic systems, we're not passive agents in this world where information is just being imposed upon us, and that imposition is what generates and causes experience. It's partially that. It's also true that we bring patterns of attention to the information, to the world, and we construct our experience. One of the things that I'm focused on is suffering, particularly unnecessary suffering. And I think that part of the entire psychological, psychotherapeutic endeavor is supposed to be the amelioration of unnecessary suffering. And so it kind of follows that if experience is in part a construction that's a product of at least our patterns of attention, well, does that mean that our unnecessary suffering, which is an experience, can be reduced if we apply the optimal or the correct patterns of attention to the world? And I think that's true. I think that's the case. I was talking to my friend yesterday about, we were talking about reality, we were talking about perception and mindset and personality. And one of the things we were discussing was this experiment with rats. And imagine you take two rats and you put them in this double treadmill contraption where you have rat A that can run on its own, but every time rat A decides to run, rat B will be forced to run. So you have the same amount of running, or you have the same aerobic stimulus being applied to each rat, but the difference is the mindset or the pattern of attention, where one rat is running voluntarily but the other rat is being forced to run. And then after a few days of enabling these rats or allowing them to exercise, you measure their physiological markers, and the rat that voluntarily chose to run is healthier than the rat that involuntarily chose to run, again, even though it's the same stimulus. There are many experiments like this that detail how different mindsets, or again, I would say different patterns of attention, lead to different experiences. And there's two examples I guess I want to talk about that maybe apply broadly in life. And the first one has to deal with goals and the type of goals that you set for yourself and the attention that you pay to those goals. And then, if we have time, I think I'm going to talk about anticipation. So, goals are super interesting. There's something else I've been studying a lot recently. There's this book called Neuropsychology of Anxiety by Jeffrey Gray and Neil McNaughton, and they just came out with a third edition last year. And I think so much of that book helped me understand the fact that we bring something to the world when we're trying to make sense of it, but also it helped me understand the importance of goals. So a goal is something you desire. It's an aim. It's something that you want to have happen. And a goal plays a major role in determining your perception and behavior. And it also regulates your emotions. Why is that the case? Well, there's so much information in the world, and you can't pay attention to all of it. So you pay attention to that which is relevant to your goal. Remember, I said I defined attention as the process of foregrounding salient information and backgrounding irrelevant information. Well, salient or irrelevant in terms of what? In terms of your goals. So goals play a major role in determining your perception and behavior, but it also regulates your emotions in that when you set a goal, this is one way to think of it, positive emotion manifests as you see yourself moving towards a goal, and negative emotion, particularly starting with anxiety and then perhaps it manifests in fear, negative emotion is the result of encountering a conflict along your journey towards your goal. Another way of saying that is negative emotion manifests when you encounter an obstacle that inhibits progress towards your goal. So, positive emotion and negative emotion, perception and behavior are all tightly influenced by your goals. Now we have conscious and unconscious goals. Most of our goals are unconscious. Another way to think of that is that whenever you set a goal consciously, your nervous system, your unconscious, also overlays a hierarchy, a hierarchical system of goals into the world. So, for example, I want to run a marathon. I have a marathon on May 25th, and my goal is to run it in under 2 hours and 50 minutes. So let's just say I have a goal of running a marathon. That's something that I consciously think about, but there are many behaviors and perceptions that are implied for me when I set that goal because I have this knowledge, this experience. I've watched many YouTubers and fitness influencers run marathons, so I've been learning, okay, well, if I want to run a marathon, then I need to run at least 70 miles a week. Okay, to run 70 miles a week, I need to run 11 or 12 miles 6 days a week. So now we break that down to, you'll notice I set this long-term goal, but I'm breaking that down temporally because all of those sub-goals still have to be completed if I'm going to accomplish my ultimate goal of running the marathon in a certain time. So then each day, I need to run 12 miles. Well, before I start my run, I need to wake up at a certain time and I need to go put my shoes on to get ready to go outside. When I'm putting my shoes on, I have to tie my shoelaces. So this ultimate goal of running a marathon it's in a hierarchy where I have that at the top, and then there are all of these micro perceptions and behaviors that have to be accomplished if I'm going to accomplish the goal. So there's a relationship between me waking up on a day-to-day basis and tying my shoelaces and this higher order goal. And why does that relate to attention? Well, just as I said, your goal plays a major role in determining your perception and behavior and regulating your emotion. The higher order goal that you're attending to, the more intense the emotional feeling is when you either accomplish that goal or you see yourself moving towards that goal, or when you encounter a conflict. So going back to our example, if I'm tying my shoelace, that's like a micro order goal in relation to a higher order goal. And if I'm tying my shoelace, more than likely I'm consciously just paying attention to tying my shoelace. So if I make a mistake, it's not that big a deal. And if I successfully tie my shoes, it's also, maybe I get a little dopamine kick, but it doesn't really feel that great. It's like, okay, this is expected, fine. There is a way in which something little can become something big because there is this nesting of goals. And so it could be that maybe if I'm stressed, or maybe if I'm having a bad day, or I just got into a fight with my wife, when I'm tying my shoes, my attention drifts from that lower order goal to a higher order goal. And this can happen unconsciously. And so I'm tying my shoelaces, I make a mistake. It's like, if I get this feeling of dread or anxiety or frustration or sadness, and I don't know why, it could be because it's not necessarily that I just made a mistake tying my shoelaces. It's like, well, now, what's going on with me? I can't tie my shoes properly. Maybe I should just not go outside. Maybe I should give up on this run today. Maybe now I'm only going to run, 40 miles this week instead of 70, and that's going to ruin my whole program. And because that ruins my whole program, I might as well give up and not even try to run the marathon. And I do think that there are biochemical mechanisms that mediate that proclivity to jump from a micro goal all the way up to a higher order goal. But I think this is the overall pattern of us having hierarchical goals, and your attention that you pay to each goal plays a major role in your experience. I think that's something that's true. I even imagine in relationships where if your intimate partner, kind of snaps at you for something, maybe you didn't do a chore, or maybe you said something that you felt like was small, but they perceived it as large. Well, it could be that you not doing the dishes to them represents the higher order goal of having a loving relationship. They, in their perceptual goal hierarchy, see something small of washing dishes as related to wanting to have a good evening, and wanting to have a good evening is related to wanting to have a good week in terms of a lack of conflict in the relationship, and the desire of having a good week is related to a sustained desire to have a good relationship, for lack of better terms. And so that goal hierarchy is always there, is what I am trying to get across here. And the attention that you pay, consciously or unconsciously, to each goal plays a role in shaping the experience, either positively or negatively. And so when something happens that's small, or when something happens that's big, it could be useful to sit back and think, why did this trigger me? What kind of attention am I paying right now to this scenario? Is there a deeper goal that I have that maybe I didn't know that maybe I didn't consciously know that I had it, and maybe I need to think about that and meditate on it, and maybe I need to shift my attention from this higher order goal, such as running a marathon, and just focus on the small task of tying my shoelaces. And if I make a mistake tying my shoelaces, it's not the end of the world, because given the hierarchical structure of goals, there are many other subtasks that I need to complete that can still enable me to accomplish my goal. So another example of attention shaping our experience is anticipation. There's this book by Andy Clark. It's called The Experience Machine. And Andy Clark is a philosopher who does a great job, in my opinion, of detailing this computational neuroscientific theory called predictive processing, or predictive coding. And to summarize and to oversimplify, your nervous system is a predicting machine. Think of the fact that we can be surprised when something happens. To be surprised means that something unexpected happens. And for something to be unexpected, it means that you were expecting something else. And so you're always expecting or anticipating or predicting that some model of the world is going to manifest itself. And then when there's deviations from that model, that's called a prediction error, or that's surprise. So the point is, you're always anticipating that something is going to happen. And this ties back to the earlier idea that we are, to a degree, constructing our experience. Now, anticipation can be good, but it could also be bad, particularly if you're anticipating something negative that's going to occur. So let's say you have a job that you hate, and let's say you're off today, but you have to go to work tomorrow. Now, you could spend today anticipating how horrible the job is going to be tomorrow, and that can make you anxious, afraid, and dread. It can fill you with a feeling of dread today. So now the negative experience of working the 12-hour shift tomorrow has actually made your day off worse. So it's not just those 12 hours of suffering that you have to go through. Your anticipation of those 12 hours of suffering is making, the extended 24 or 36 hours worse than they need to be. Now, anticipation could be helpful because maybe you need to plan for the day. Maybe the job will be difficult because there's there's so little time to do actual planning and strategizing for your tasks during the workday. So maybe your anticipation and your anxiety on your day off will make you get ahead of the game and do some more reading or prepare better so that way the day isn't as difficult. Both of those options are viable. I guess I would just offer that those are two different patterns of attention that you could pay to the same stimulus. You have a job, you have something that's going to happen in the future that you're anticipating is going to be negative, it's going to be painful, it's going to suck. You have to ask yourself in the present, what is the best way to conduct yourself? What's the best pattern of attention so that way you don't suffer unnecessarily? Is it helpful to sabotage your day off because you're dreading what's going to happen in the future, and there's nothing you can do about what's going to happen in the future unless you quit your job or you decide to make a change, you go talk to your boss or something. But let's say no matter what, you're going to go to the job and you're going to complete your work. Well, maybe you don't think about it, or maybe you spend 10 minutes of your day off thinking about it, and then you set an alarm, you say, okay, after this 10-minute mark I'm done. Or maybe you voluntarily, you consciously think that I'm going to prepare and I'm going to take an hour to do what I can to make tomorrow not as bad. Those are definitely options, and I guess my advice that I'm trying to offer is just, if you know that something negative is going to occur in the future, be mindful of the kind of attention in terms of anticipation that you pay. And if you find yourself brooding and dreading what's going to happen and you're not willing to do anything to change it, then maybe you should limit how much you're thinking about what's going to happen in the future. So those are just two examples of how different types of attention and different patterns of attention can shape and influence your experience. And I would just encourage you, when you're going through something, to ask yourself, well, is my, let's say, negative experience a consequence of the environment and the situation itself? Because that very well could be the case. Or is there a manner in which I'm attending to this scenario that's suboptimal, where if I changed how I attended to it, things could be better? So thank you guys for listening. I appreciate the attention. I have an essay that'll be coming out about this topic on my Substack, which you can subscribe to below using the link below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.